Everything that we do in life has a start and a finish. Most things we actually look forward to finishing just to be able to say that we've done it. Now, in this room, I know there's a lot of athletes that do running, bicycling, and other athletic events, like Shauna, who's done an Ironman. When you see that finish line after all those many miles, you get that joyful feeling. Well, I'm at that finish line right now with this path, but it hasn't been an easy path because it tricked me. Now, at the very beginning, when I saw presentation mastery, oh, I thought this was going to be all about how to put together PowerPoints and razzle dazzle everybody. Think again. It had nothing to do with that, but it did have something to do with a little razzle dazzle. But I'll get to that in a second. Level 1. For anybody who's ever done a path, you know you have to do your icebreaker. And it's got an icebreaker speech, which that was a piece of cake. I'm used to those. You only have to tell them a small segment of your life for 4 to 6 minutes. Trust me, as Richard will tell you, I can talk about myself for a long time. So cutting it down to 4 to 6 minutes is the challenge that I have there. But normally we have the feedback, the 2 speeches that you get feedback and you incorporate. Well, the new path is a little bit different. Now they incorporate a couple different speeches called writing a speech with a purpose. Well, that's new. It was something I wasn't expecting. I got to have a purpose. I can't just talk because I like to talk. So that was another challenge that I had to face with this one. Now, the introduction to vocal variety and body language. Well, I got a lot of body to play with, so that's easy. And I do know how to project. I also know how to be soft. So that's an easy speech for me. Then they snuck in that evaluation feedback. So yes, it's still there. But then level 1 was easy. That was done. That was for all things that I'd already practiced before. But then comes level 2. Understanding your, in this case, my communication style. My communication style is direct. I tell it like I see it because that's how I want it. Don't give me any soft soap. Don't make things nice and pleasant. Hey, you screwed up. This is what you did wrong. This is how you can fix it. That's what I liked. But it had nothing to do with that. It's got a whole lot of other things that go in there. And that was a challenge because I never considered all those other aspects of communication that I needed to incorporate in that speech. So that was definitely something that I had to figure out because your gestures can't just be willy-nilly. They have to actually have a purpose that when you're laying this out for somebody, they can follow in an organized manner. Otherwise, you have an audience that's like, what's he doing? Is this the clown show? And trust me, I don't do clown work. Effective body language. That was the second part of that communication style. That's important. My body language, I think it's good. My wife says my face sometimes tells a different story. She has said that I sometimes have that resting grumpy face. If anybody knows what that is, maybe you can tell me later. I've never heard of it before. And mentoring. Mentoring is a big part of level 2 because Toastmasters has a unique way about it. We've got a new member here today. If I started telling her about all the things that she was going to do in Pathways, it could be overwhelming because she's never even heard of Pathways that we talk about. But once you've been in in Toastmasters for a while, Pathways is really easy once you understand the way it's organized. Of course, they did just change everything with the new learning management system. That threw everybody back to base 1 or the beginning. So Toastmasters has mentoring that is designed to make everybody successful at their own speed. So I think that's really great. And that's something that was pointed out in that project. Level 3, persuasive speaking. Now, for me, I have to have persuasive speaking because I'm a salesman. I sell things all the time. That's what I do in my day job. If I can't persuade somebody to buy, I go hungry because I don't have a salary. It's commission only. Now, there's a lot of people in this room that I know do commission sales. So they're in the same boat. If they don't make a sale, they don't get a paycheck. That could be tough, especially if you like to live in a house and have that rent mortgage or that mortgage payment paid for it. That's important. And you have nice things. You want to keep those nice things. So persuasive speaking was something that I thought I did well, but it pointed out a few things that I could change and fine tune it. Because at the end of the day, we're here to learn how to make our speaking better. Persuasive speaking project helps you identify the areas that you can go ahead and make some small changes to get those huge results. And it was very effective for me. Fortunately, I did this before I got into the bulk of my sales. And I ended up going from number 18 in the office in sales, because I was new, to number 3, which I think is a huge jump. Because I even beat the boss's daughter. And she gets better appointments than I do, because her name's higher on the list. Now, some of the electives in that one were storytelling and connecting with your audience. I am a former sailor, as most of you know, and all our sea stories start with, well, I can't tell you what they start with because it's crude, but it's more along the lines that this ain't no lie. And then we tell our story. So I've been telling stories since the early 80s, and they're fun. But again, going back into persuasive speaking and speaking with a purpose, your story has to have a moral at the end, a little hook to grab them and convince them of whatever you're trying to sell or convince them of or teach them. So the storytelling is about connecting with your audience. So a story that I might tell to you guys, I learned would be different than the ones that I might tell to my clients, because they're not going to have the same purpose. So I've had to learn to be flexible. That's the key word, while showing a lot of brevity. Because when you're on a 45-minute phone call and you've got 50 minutes worth of information to give out, you can't tell a 10-minute story. Because guess what happens then? You don't get to finish your sales call. Or worse, you don't get to start the next one and it has to go to somebody else and they get that sale. Because it's all about the sales. The next one was know your sense of humor. Does anybody really know what their sense of humor is? Unless you're that one unique individual that is very dry and pan-faced, where you don't crack a smile when you tell your jokes, almost to the point where nobody knows if you're serious or if it's a joke. Well, that's the way I used to be. And I knew that was okay for me. But at the end of the day, when I'm trying to connect with my audience, tell a story, that wasn't always the most effective way. So I had to reevaluate and change my humor up a little bit. I'm still working on that, because humor is not a universal language for all people at all the time. So what may be funny to one person is not going to hit right with the next person. And of course, nowadays, you have to be a lot more careful. If you ever watch some of the comedy shows from the 70s and 80s of the last century, or last decade, last century, anybody could be made fun of. It didn't matter who you were, what you were, where you came from, you were going to be the butt of a joke at some point. Nowadays, nobody can be made the butt of a joke because everybody has feelings. So you have to make something up that's funny, that doesn't affect or offend anybody. That's a challenge, because somebody's going to take offense to something, or somebody could take offense to anything you say just about. So you have to be careful. Level 4, This one you guys really had some fun with. The difficult audience. Guess what? That's fun. But I had an okay time with that because handling your challenges, I was a school teacher with third graders and fifth graders. You guys had nothing on that. Handling your challenges, you were kind of scripted. We knew what they were going to be. That's okay. We can handle that. I didn't have a problem with that because, like I said, being a school teacher, dealing with kids, dealing with parents, it's not a problem. You learned it, how to handle those things and just move on. Then I had to give an elective on, they had a bunch of choices. Create a podcast. That wasn't exactly anything that I was interested in doing at the time. Building a social media presence. Well, I've had a Facebook account, and the last time I posted anything intentionally was probably about 3 years ago, because I'm not a big social media guy. So that wasn't something that interested me. Manage an online meeting. Well, we've all done Zoom meetings here. I do Zoom meetings at my job all day long. So that really wasn't something that was going to challenge me. The question and answer session, it's like teaching again. I can ask or answer questions. You go ahead and throw them at me and I answer them. That's not a challenge. But a public relations strategy, that was the other elective that was available. What's a public relations strategy? And I had to think about that one. But I wanted to make sure that it was aligned with Toastmasters. So I worked with a club on how they were going to manage their membership and get more members. And it was actually pretty effective. They went ahead and incorporated some of those ideas. Now, not that all the members stayed, but they did end up getting 3 new members within about 3 to 4 meetings. So that was good. Now, the next one, level 4, after I completed that, I went to level 5. And as I did then, I'm doing it again. I spoke too much and went over time. And Richard was really awesome about letting me know about that. But I spoke professionally no, that one was the one I went short, wasn't it? I was supposed to do 18 to 22 and I did 16. Because normally I go too long. And then I had to do an elective about volunteering in my organization. Well, I had just done a big area contest. So I talked about that. And now I have to tell you that I am finally at the finish line for not only this path, but this is the last thing that I need for my DTM. So when I put this in tonight and it gets approved, I will be able to go ahead and file with Toastmasters International for my DTM. And with that, I thank you all for putting up with me. And I've now crossed the finish line, Mr. Toastmaster.